right out there in the interwebs. So my name is Teresa. This is my husband, Ryan. And my interest is in Outlander. But specifically, I am interested in the creative process that goes from what Outlander is in the book to the series. And I like to take what happens in the book and in the series and discuss it and then see if we can, or if I can figure out what's going to happen in the TV show based upon what changes they made, what adaptations they made. So Ryan has not read the book. I have read all the books twice, at least twice.
So my part in this is I'm going to try and be an anchor to the TV show while Teresa talks a little bit more about the book stuff.
Yes. So this episode is going to discuss episode 1 of season 6 called Echoes, which we just watched on Sunday, and this is now Tuesday, so I've had 2 days to digest it. I've been really trying to avoid all talk and commentary on it so I don't get ideas in my head that I already have ideas in my head. So, but
and forewarning, little forewarning, lots of spoilers.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched episode
Lots
601 yet, lots of spoilers. If you haven't read the books, Teresa's going to spoil that too. So there's going to be a lot of spoilers.
I will spoil all the books. I will possibly spoil the TV show because I'm going to say what I think is going to happen. They might change it, but I think I'm pretty right. But anyway, so
no, they have changed a lot. There's a lot of plot lines from the books that were never introduced and doesn't make sense to introduce at this point. There are plot lines that were just torn straight out of the pages of the book, from what I understand. So we never know what predictions we're going to say is going to be right and which ones are just going to be completely out of it.
And actually, so there's actually, I'm going to make a note because I want to bring this up later. But Ryan, I want to hear your impressions first of the first episode.
Well, I actually am. I really like this. So they started off the episode with a flashback to Aarsmere Prison. I really like that because it regrounded the series for me, kind of in its roots. You know, back when Jamie was dirty, prisoner, and just it was not the great life that they have right now. And so it really brings you back to the roots of Outlander. And I really thought that was a good idea. With that, they also introduced another character. And that character, I think, is going to be pretty integral to the rest of this series. But TK, what do you think?
I think it also grounded us back to remember that we started in Scotland. So now we're in, colonial America, but we did start in Scotland. And of course, you always have to think, I was always interested in listening to the Outlander podcast on the episodes. And so I heard a lot of the writers explain why they changed things. So that's what really interested me. I've always been interested in book media turned into movie or TV media and how that changes. So, but a couple of the things that they did was, the flashback is in the book, but it's actually in book 5. And what I realized as you were talking, Ryan, and what I wrote it down is one of the things that might be why some things might not be a spoiler is they flip-flop things because the Christies arrived at the Ridge in book 5. And Claire's abduction happened in book 6. So I remember now, and you probably don't remember me saying this, but when I watched seasons 1 to 5, then I read all the books, and when I read book 5 and the Christies were in the book and not in the series, I didn't think that they were going to do anything with that because they arrived towards the end of book 5. And then when I read book 6, I don't know if you remember me telling you this, Ryan, but I was like, I don't know how they're not going to bring in the Christies because it's a huge story arc. of the Christies that I think, especially because um season 6 is only 8 episodes long, it's gonna expand the whole. It has to expand um the whole season, I
Right.
think.
So it
But
really
I
just
think
goes to
that
show that no matter what order things happen in the book, it can happen at any time in the
right.
show.
Mhm. Um and the other thing too is the flashback happens in book 5, but it's actually told through one of the other characters, Kenny Lindsay, which is one of the Lindsay brothers, one of Jamie's fellow prisoners is Adsmuir that ends up at the Ridge. But one of the things that I love about Outlander, okay, so um, if you don't read the books and you just watch the series, you
Which is
don't
me.
get, which is you. Okay, so then I'll tell you. That's another reason Ryan is on here, to represent the TV viewer who doesn't know the book. So one of the things that Sam Heughan does so well portraying Jamie is he picks up the little things that Jamie does, and things that I'm like, oh yeah, that's what he does. Like the one thing I noticed in the book is he flicks his finger often, and I'm like, what's up with? I mean, it was noticeable enough that
Like
I
like
noticed that. Like he
this.
does this when something's stressful, he flicks his finger, and it was noticeable. I don't know if you ever noticed that. It was noticeable enough to me that I was like, well, that must be a character choice. I did community theater, people. I know what character choices are. But anyway, when I read the book, it's a trait of Jamie's that he does that when he's thinking. Um, and so when Tom Christie was when Roger okay, so Tom Christie shows up when Jamie is recovering from the snake bite in the books.
And who is this
So
Tom
Roger,
Christie guy?
what's that?
And who is this Tom Christie guy? And where did he come from? And why do we care about him?
Tom Christie shows up at the Ridge, tells Roger, because Jamie's not around, that he wants to settle on the Ridge. And the whole flashback shows that Tom Christie and Jamie know each other um, from Ardsmuir, and there was kind of like a rivalry between the Catholics and it says the Protestants, but I'm pretty sure specifically the Presbyterians. And it's much more dramatic in the show than it is in the book. In the
I
book,
honestly,
it's
I thought it was the guy from Ardsmuir was Tom Christie was the Brown brother, the living Brown brother. I thought they looked very
oh
similar.
Richard
Yeah, and I was like,
Richard
why is he at
Richard.
Ardsmuir? Like, did Jamie know him before? I didn't think so. No, totally different character. I completely got them confused.
Oh wow, you just realized now that was Tom Christie at
No, no,
Ardsmuir.
no. I understood that after I like watched it after the flashback. But as I was watching the flashback, I thought it was the Browns guy.
Okay,
So that set me like I was because
so
they look very similar to me, and I thought, why is he
me
there?
too. Yeah, I was very sad that Myrtle was not at Ardsmuir. I thought, of course, he's not in the book at this point. He dies at Culloden. That's one of the things I do like. I like that they kept Murta. I think he deserved a longer, a longer storyline.
Oh, he's awesome. Everyone loves Murta. Everyone loves Murta.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so Tom Christie shows up, tells Roger that he knew Jamie from Ardsmuir, and when Roger tells him, there's just this look. And we know why there's a look on Jamie's face, like because we had just seen the flashback of the whole thing. Um, and then when the prisoner, the poor blind guy who gets killed, and that was a whole. Okay, so I'm gonna say it's a whole made up storyline, but now I'm flipping through like the 1,600 pages of book 5 and 6, and I'm like, did that happen? Was that something Jamie said happened at some point? But I don't think so, because the whole story with the plaid was actually from Voyager book 3. Um, Jamie covers for a young prisoner who was caught with a plaid, and he takes the blame for it. But now Tom Christie has something over on Jamie. Not, I don't know how to put it, but the way he said, like, when Jamie walked out and Tom Christie said that wasn't justice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of course his view of justice is I'm sure quite strict.
Strict is
I
a good
just had
word to
a
use.
yeah, I just had a thought that here reminds me of Javert from Les Miserables, if anyone's ever seen Les Miserables. But anyway,
In
so
the flashback scene does happen in the book, but just not as depicted on the TV show.
right, and it's told by another character. So of course, when you have a TV show, you have to show. You're not gonna have someone tell a story if you can show it. You know, so
And they
so
talk,
but
and they actually talk at length in the podcast, the commentary, the video commentary, about how they dislike exposition and voiceover
mhm,
work. They do it very sparingly, and that's a very intentional choice. So anytime you hear voiceover work, and one of the characters, usually Claire or Jamie, narrating part of the episode, uh, that is that's a decision they made very carefully and judiciously.
mhm. But what I was gonna say when I came back to Ryan, you're supposed to keep me anchored on this, but no,
I'm
when
trying. I'm talking about the show.
when Roger tells Jamie, and he has that like look of like Tom Christie. Now, so in the book, Roger tells Jamie while Jamie's still recovering from almost dying from the snake bite, and the way I just read it, the way it says in the book, it's like Roger felt like all the air left out of the room for a second. But in the book, Jamie is very famously, you can't read his expressions. Well, obviously, you can't not read people's expressions on a TV show, because then what the hell is the actor doing? You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same for Claire, because in the book, Claire's supposed to have a glass face and all her emotions are supposed to be on her face. Well, that's not acting. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have Katrina Balfe just be like, just, you know what I mean? Like, that's not acting. That's, I don't know. It's hard
Mhm.
to, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if Jamie has an expression in his face, then what's Sam Heughan doing as an actor? He's just not doing anything. So that's the thing. Like, when I read things in the book and I'm like, oh, that's why he chose to like, that's a reflective of Jamie's character. Like, I just I just get very upset that he's not been nominated for more Emmys or something. I don't know. Nominate him for something, because I think he does a good job. But
Does
anyway,
he have a SAG card? Does he have a SAG card? Who knows? Like,
I don't. So moving on to Tom Christie, Melva Christie, his daughter, the actress who plays her, I can't think of her last name, is Jessica something. She looks very much like I pictured Melva, like very small and demure. And the
homely,
other reason, what's that?
little homely.
Yeah, the only thing I don't understand, and I said this to Ryan, is I don't understand why she doesn't wear a cap on her head. Because like the whole thing about Claire and Brianna not wearing a cap, like it's a big thing. Like women wear caps. I don't wear caps. But anyway,
That doesn't
so
seem like something they again that they're pretty um they pay attention to detail pretty well. So
yeah, so maybe it'll come up. I can't remember if there was something in the book about her not wearing a cap, but the other reason I didn't think the Christies were going to be in the show was because um Melva, the daughter, kind of like becomes Claire's assistant, which is what Marcelly was doing in book 5. So I thought like that role of Claire's assistant was being filled by Marcelly. And speaking of Marcelly and Fergus, some trouble there. Fergus is spending a lot of time the whiskey still testing the product.
That's right. And you got to be real careful with that stuff.
I myself, I myself had my first taste of Sassenach on for the premiere. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it after it was watered down a little bit. I'm not a whiskey person. I am 20% Scottish, as you see by my plaid and my pin.
So yeah, this is a great time to remind listeners that Sam Heughan does have a Scotch called the Sassenach, and it's rather difficult to get here in the States, especially in our particular state that's that has liquor laws that are awful. But anyways, it was we cracked the bottle open on when we watched episode 601. I'm a big Scotch fan. Drinking some Japanese whiskey right now, but Japanese take a lot from the Scotch people in making their whiskey, so I kind of consider it Scotch anyways. We can fight about this later, but the Sassenach whiskey was a very good Scotch. So thumbs up, Sam. Great job on the Sassenach. Hopefully, I can grab another bottle, but I'm really going to enjoy this one. Gonna
You
try
have
and
to try
have
it.
yeah. So I'm gonna try and have one glass per episode. I will not be drinking it during our podcast because it is just I want to save it. I want to save it, and I have too much
Yes,
watch
have
to
to
get.
make it last. So Fergus Morsley, um, I think in the book he doesn't start drinking until after their son is born, Henry Christian, who I think Morsley by the preview is gonna have next in the next episode.
That's
Um,
what it looked like. Yeah,
but yeah, but I think they hinted at what Fergus's uh, Lizzie was flirting with one of the Beardsley's twins, something about many hands
mm.
help or something, and Fergus with his one hand. I just think the stresses of not really being able to support your family and Marcelly having to do so much is just really starting to weigh on him. And there's some trouble in paradise, but I really like Parsley, and Fergus are one of my favorite couples. I really like the way that the actors portray them.
They grew on me so much.
So
Whenever
yeah,
Marsley was first introduced, she was the daughter of Beelzebub. Uh, yeah, she was obviously the family ties I'm not a big fan of. I don't think anyone is a fan of, and I'm sure it was written that way. But yeah, Marsley and Fergus are awesome. They're great. Fergus is diving into drink is I mean that sounds reasonable to me given his state of mind. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that.
um, quick story. I read an article that Lauren Lyle, who plays Marsley, had a fan come up to her and tell her that she hated her because she was Leary's daughter. And I just thought that was so awful. Like, I don't understand people that can't separate characters
Like
from actors.
she came up and said, "I literally hate you, the person,
Yes,
because your character's mother is
it's
terrible."
crazy. Yes. Like, I can't
Gotcha.
believe somebody would do that. It's
Okay.
crazy.
Well,
Anyway,
remind me never to become an actor.
so moving on to what other stuff? I think it was just such a great episode. It got me really
Let's
excited
let's
for.
talk a little. We're about 20 minutes in, so we still have a little bit of time left. Let's talk a little bit about the ether and
Yes.
some other things that might come of it.
Yeah, so I tried real like I said before, I tried really hard to stay away from comments or stuff, but I heard fans were not a fan of that storyline. I was not a fan because I just personally felt that it was kind of like It's definitely not in the storyline. I know that, I don't know, but I'm 99% sure that the writers want Claire to deal with her trauma. But in the book, she does. It's just different. Like, it comes out in different ways. Um, and I just, but what I thought was, I can't see book Claire doing that, but I maybe can see um, TV Claire doing that.
Well, now
But
that they're probably trying to pitch, a an Outlander to a bigger audience, addiction is a serious issue that a lot of people face, and you have Fergus start like winding up his drinking problem. Claire is going to be escaping her nightmares and her PTSD that she has with a little bit of ether. Um, so yeah, I don't know how they're going to deal with these issues and how they're going to bring about resolution. Are they going to, show Fergus um, getting worse in the drink? Is one of them going to handle it better than the other, or in a more appropriate way? I'm not
well,
sure.
what you said about like a wider audience and addiction, and that's like bringing 2022 into colonial America TV show. It just irritates me. Like it does, especially because if they want to be like not even like the addiction prospect of it, but the trauma aspect of it. Well, Jamie in the books, in the TV show, he had a little bit of like issues with Blackjack torturing and raping him.
Oh, a little bit.
Like, it's kind of like, but it went through to like the middle of season 2, whereas in the book, he never gets over it, basically. He has nightmares often. But
Mm.
they never bring that up. So why is it like, oh, we have to show how Claire is dealing with this when, but whatever. But okay, so anyway, my thing is, so I said, what are they going to do? Have Roger and Bree explain to Jamie what an intervention is? Like, what the hell? But then I had another idea. So, and I had to go back right before we went on because I had read some comments and I said, did that happen? She
I
had an
appreciate you doing
open
your due
flame.
diligence. That's very, very good of you for the viewers.
Oh, thank you. So she does have an open flame when she has this ether. So I think what's going to
In the TV
happen
show, she has the open flame.
in the TV show. Um, so what I think is going to happen is, um, so Donner, who is the guy from season 5, who was the other traveler that Claire meets, who's in Lionel Brown's gang.
Right, right.
Who meets
At
Claire,
in
he says
the forest scene.
yeah, when he says he came through in 1968 with a couple of Indians, Robert Springer, who was Ottertooth from season 4, who came back and was killed by the Mohawk. So in the book, Donner is not a likable person. He's kind of like, we went through the stones, man, boom, man. And he's like, I don't know, he's like tripped out all the time. He did too many mushrooms or something.
Little
And
too much peyote.
yes. So, in the show, he's much like in the book, he already knows Claire has been assaulted and he doesn't try to help her at all. Whereas in the TV show, like he still doesn't like help her, but I really don't think he thinks they're actually going to assault her. And I think maybe the reason he wasn't with them was because he tried to help her get away. But in the book, he also doesn't know that you need gemstones. The gemstones are like more of a steering thing. Like if you have a gemstone, you can steer where you're going, whereas if you don't, you just end up somewhere else. So Donner shows up twice in the book. The first time he finds out about the gemstones. The second time he tries to rob Claire of the gemstones, but Roger and Bree have already used them to go back to the future, which I don't think that Roger and Bree are going to go back now. So I think that so the big question in season 4 was, when is this house fire going to happen? And if your season 6 is based off a book called A Breath of Snow and Ashes, you just are going to assume there's going to be a fire. I did. As soon as I found out that the title was A Breath of Snow and Ashes, I'm like, well, clearly the house is going to burn. So I'm wondering if Bree and Roger are, in the book, they're gone when the house burns. I'm wondering if they're going to stay in at Fraser's Ridge, and that's when, and Claire's ether addiction is going to end up what starts the fire. And the one other thing I did notice, so our first video was comparing the opening scenes of the title cards and see if we could predict what would happen in season 6. And one of the pictures was people on a horse at a beach. I was like, I don't know what the hell that's going to be. But when we saw it on the big screen, it looked like that they may have been Mohawks that were on those horses.
Yeah, you could see like the reds and maybe some feathers.
So I think that's another flashback. I think that's going to be Donner telling the story of how he and a group of other, I don't know if they're necessarily Mohawks, but a group of Native Americans found a stone circle on Ocracoke Island in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which, Ryan, I said that reminded me of the Outer Banks.
Right.
The beach there. So I think that's going to be a flashback. I think that's going to be Donner telling how the group of them tried to go back to basically change history. And can I just say real quick, so their intention was they wanted the Indians, all the Indians, they thought these group of Native Americans that came from the 60s thought that if the revolution didn't happen, in the English would keep in control, that they would treat the Indians better than the colonials. And I was like, if I was Claire, I'd be like, well, let me tell you what they did to the Highlanders, and we'll see if they really leave you alone. So
not too much of a difference.
Yeah, I was like, he said this in the book, and Brianna's like intrigued, and Claire says nothing. I would have been like, oh, well, let me tell you what I experienced. So yeah, so next episode, I think Henry Christian is going to be born. Jamie became an Indian agent for the crown to persuade the Cherokee to fight for the English. And I think it's going to happen. There's a great scene where Jamie comes and it's in the book, they're not the Cherokee, they're something else, I think. But the chief wants to show Jamie how they appreciate him with certain women of the tribe showing their appreciation to Jamie late at night in his lodge. and Ian's with him, and Ian finds it quite hilarious. And when I read that scene in the book, I could totally picture it happening on the screen.
All right, so our next podcast episode might be not safe for work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I covered everything that one more thing. So the bugs, Medina bug and arch bug, were in season 5, and I had no idea. I totally didn't even know they existed, so I read the book. I read the books and I rewatched it, and I'm like, oh, they were in the TV show, and they're coming out a little more. So I'm thinking that the whole Jacobite gold storyline might happen, not as intricate as it was in the book, because there was this whole thing about Jocasta, and Stephen Bonnet was involved in it, and they killed him off. So obviously he's not going to be involved. And it was just very, very intricate. So I think they'll bring in aspects of it, but not um, the entire storyline. But I think the bugs might be involved because they're already more featured in this first episode than they were like all of season 4 and 5. I don't even know if they're in season 4. They might not have been.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all. Jack of Gold, Melva. I can't wait for Melva's storyline. I had a hard time hating Tom Christie though, because I know what's going to happen in the future, at least in the books. So I know like his background even before, or his backstory even before at Artsmuir, and he's not the typical villain in Outlander. You have like Blackjack is just pure evil basically. And you have like Stephen Bonnet, he's psychotic. But Tom Christie, he's like, you can see where he kind of went um zealot, you know. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say about that. Do you have any questions, Rod? Any comments?
I think we're good for now. I'm looking forward to season episode 602.
Hmm.
Looking forward to more
Allegiance is the
questions.
title of it. Allegiance.
Mm-hmm. Yep, these titles are good. Echoes was the name of this one, which makes a lot of sense given all the echoes of the past that
Exactly.
Jamie and everyone are
I
going through.
I knew as soon as I saw the title Allegiance that it was gonna have to do with Jamie being an Indian agent. I would love if I had time to do a short video on the titles of the episodes that I saw and try to guess what they're about. Two of them are right from the book chapter titles. So when you get to episode, I think it's 5 or 6, the world turned upside down. That's going to be an explosive episode.
Really?
Yeah, I remember when I read it in the book, I was like, what? So
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be a good episode. All right, so you ready to check on out of here?
Yeah, let's wrap it up and we'll see everyone at episode 602.
All right, bye.